All right. Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll give it just a second. I think we might have just a couple more people popping in. Today, you are joining us for our webinar titled Streamlining Your Technology, Managing Your Entire Visual Fleet with Optoma OMS Management Suite. Without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Carlene Vaughn. I'm the education consultant here to answer questions and available as kind of an ongoing resource for our partners and customers. And with me, we have Roland Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks so much, Carlene. Glad to be here. Good afternoon. I'm Roland Hamilton. I'm with Optima's Product Management Department. Um, I wear a lot of hats here, so we'll leave it at that.
So many hats, yes. All right. So we'll go ahead and kind of kick this off. And because we're talking about OMS, and some of you may be wondering, what is that? Roland, can you give us a quick sort of 2-minute elevator pitch and tell us what OMS is?
Yeah, absolutely, Carlene. So OMS is Optima's remote device management platform. OMS allows users to remotely monitor, manage, diagnose, and control their displays, both Optima and non-Optima displays. And in addition to those core control and management features, OMS is also essentially a simple digital signage platform. So through OMS, you can push content to your remote displays, and you can do so both real time and on a scheduled basis, right? OMS comes in two different flavors, really. There's a local only version, which is PC software. So you have a local machine in your school or your office or whatever the setting is, and that computer runs OMS, and it's sort of self-contained within that local network. That's OMS Local. Then the more popular option is OMS Cloud, which is a cloud-based platform. It's basically the website. Let me share my screen and I will show you. So here we are on the OMS homepage, oms.optima.com, and I'm going to go ahead and log in here. And the cloud version offers all the core features of OMS Local plus some more, and we'll get into a little bit of that. Yeah, there's OMS. Did I miss anything?
No, that's perfect. Do you mind giving us a quick brief tour of what we're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So here we are on the dashboard. The interface is laid out. It's very easy to use, and everything is sort of labeled in such a way that it does what you would expect it to do. Your main functions are basically laid out in this column on the left side, and when you select a particular category of those main functions, the appropriate options open up in the main window, and all your account management and sort of help and other functions are located right up here in the top right. Yeah, and in terms of the main function, so within your organization is where you would manage your devices, right? So my system is very simple. I just have this 65-inch 5 Series Gen 3 Creative Touch Interactive in my home office. It's the only device on my system, but in a real setting, you might have 50 or 100 devices listed here. You can manage the users, right? So OMS, particularly the cloud version, allows the ability to have multi-user access, right? So there's going to be one main administrator account, but that main administrator can assign sub-users with different permission levels. You can group your displays. You can arrange your displays via different geographic, physical locations, essentially. And you've got your schedule. Like if I go into schedule, it's just going to bring up a calendar view of all my upcoming events and that sort of thing. The signage tab is where I'll go in and initiate those broadcast messages. And I can manage my playlists and my media here. Smart calibration applies really to our projectors only. The settings clone feature is very important because it lets you basically back up your devices. So if you have one device that you've set up, you can back up that device and restore it in the event that you have to do a factory default or something like that. But within here, you also get the option to clone the settings from one device to another device or set, many devices basically. So I can take one panel, set it up the way I want it, and then clone those settings to other devices. So it makes installation essentially that much easier. And last but not least, I want to touch upon the data and history. These are, somewhat boring on the surface, but they provide a lot of information. You can generate reports as to how the devices are being used, when they're being used. You can get a real time and historical picture of how your systems are being utilized. So there's a brief tour of the dashboard.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to ask just kind of a series of questions, and Roland is going to answer the question and kind of walk us through what that looks like within OMS. So first off, let's just say, or have you tell us what devices could be managed within OMS?
That is a great question. So OMS applies to all the different display categories that Optoma brings to market. So all of our video projectors, and all is the wrong word. The vast majority of our mainstream data and sort of higher end projectors, Optima sells many home theater projectors, and OMS and the management functions are not really applicable to home theater. But those aside, the vast majority of our projectors, all of our professional displays, our interactive panels, our non-interactive signage panels, all of those are fully integrated with OMS, as well as our direct view LED product. So if you're not aware, Optima, we offer two different direct view LED solutions, 135 inch and a 163 inch direct view LED all in one solution. And OMS, you can add all those device types to OMS. I'll say that particularly with the projectors, not every model offers all the broadcast features. So when it comes to, your typical classroom data projectors, you can't necessarily send the broadcast messages like you could with a panel. The reason being is, our interactive panels, for example, they run an Android operating system. There's full media playback incorporated into them, but a simple video projector for a classroom doesn't necessarily have all those features.
Perfect. Roland, could we manage competitor devices? So let's say I have a mixed environment. Maybe I have some Optima displays as well as another manufacturer.
Absolutely, yes. If you have legacy devices, older projectors from another manufacturer, you can certainly incorporate those into the OMS system. There's a few different ways to do it, depending on whether or not that projector is networked. So if the projector is on your network, you can manage those displays via PJ Link, which is a common protocol that was adopted by virtually all projector manufacturers somewhere 10 or 15 years ago. So if you have a projector manufactured within the last 10 years and it's networked, you'll more than likely be able to integrate it using PJ Link. And if it is a non-networked or an even older projector, or just a situation where that's not going to work for you, we sell our the Hive box, the OCH 100, basically an add-on accessory box that opens up the whole world of OMS to those legacy devices. It does a lot more than that as well. It offers all our whiteboard
Perfect.
features, and we're getting off topic now.
Was going to grab mine out of the
Oh,
back
there
for a
you
second.
go.
Perfect. So yes, this is our Hive solution here. So, all right, awesome. Thank you for answering that question.
Hmm.
Next, let's say I'm a school or a district and I have just purchased 30 displays, right? How does
Hmm.
deployment work?
So you would start, assuming you've already set up an account. If you haven't, you would simply create an account from the OMS homepage. And then to add your devices to the system would be the next step. And you go into the devices tab. And I've got a couple different ways I can do this. I can add devices one at a time. Just go to add a new device. And it gives me on-screen instructions, as you see. Basically, on the next page, I would enter my device's serial number, I would match a code that gets displayed on screen, and then I would give the device a name, assign it to a location and or group if I'm going that route. So you can add devices one at a time is the first answer. And if I cancel this and go back to the add button, you also have the option for bulk import of devices, which is really handy. And via this method, you essentially create, using a template that we provide, you you use an Excel file basically where before you even get to this step, you would set up your Excel file with all the device serial numbers, how you want them named in the system, what groups you want them added to, so on and so forth. And then basically in a single action, you can drop your file here and all those devices will basically be added at once.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So firmware is something that's updated periodically. How is that process managed?
Managing firmware. So you will basically, there's a few different ways to do it. I will show you if I go into my device. So here from the main column of options, I've selected devices and I went into Roland's office is what I've named this panel on the wall behind me. Here we are on the main interface for that device. I can control the device. So just as an example, if I go in here and set this to HDMI 1, in just a moment, the panel behind me is going to change over to my Windows desktop. I can bring that back to the Android system. But in terms of firmware, that's going to take place in this System Management tab. And if I go in here, you'll see right now I've got system updates are turned off. So in this state, the firmware, I'll never be prompted to install an update. Updates are basically turned off. If I turn this on, I will get the option to push a firmware update immediately. If I hit the update button, it's going to update now. And I can also set this device, and this is probably, practically speaking, what most users would want to do is set it up to check maybe monthly at a certain time of day, at 2 a.m. or something. Let it update during off hours, basically. The other way to set up firmware updates to happen automatically, if that's what you want, is to do so through the scheduling platform. If I want to go in and add a new schedule event, I just hit add up here. And here are all the options that I can schedule. I can schedule a control event to happen. So say, for example, I'm managing a school and I have my 50 panels in all my classrooms and I want them all to turn off at 5 p.m. every day. That would be a control event. And I could set it to an entire location or a group of devices. Would let me select my whole school. You can also set up broadcast messages. This is particularly handy. I mentioned that OMS functions as a simple digital signage system. You can set up those broadcast events to happen on a schedule, allowing for real integration. But system updates is what you asked me about, and I can go in here and I can apply these settings to my entire school by picking that location or a group. But in my case, I will just select device and Roland's office, and essentially those same options as to when it will look for that firmware update. And it's only going to update if an update is available, needless to say.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, and we know the devices by default are set to update automatically, right?
Mm-hmm. They
Okay,
are.
and we also know that IT teams typically like a lot more control over this. So during that initial setup, oftentimes they will turn off the auto update feature so they can manage it and schedule on their time when they have a little more bandwidth to deal with any potential problems that might show up, or so that they know it's going to take place at a time when the teachers are not trying to use the displays.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those things where the clone settings option of OMS would come in very handy. You're rolling out 50 panels in your school. You can set up that first panel with the automatic updates turned off and then clone that setting to your additional, the other 49 panels basically, and that setting would be applied.
Very good. Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Now, you touched on this just a little bit before, but how can we manage power settings? So we know that these are rated at 50,000 hours, which is a very long time when you talk about average use in a school. But how can we make sure that we're not running them at night or the weekend or on spring break when we want to make sure we're conserving energy?
Yeah, a couple different ways, and that's a really good question. A couple different ways to do that. I'll show you the first way to do it is sort of on the device by device level. You can go in to the System Management tab. I believe it's in System Management. Um, Perhaps, here we go. This is the feature I was looking for, auto power off. So I've got mine set to power off after 4 hours, and I can adjust this. I can select after 10 minutes of non-use, basically, no active external input like a connected computer or nobody's touching it. The board will basically turn itself off or go to sleep after 10 minutes. So there's a nice easy way, and you can find whatever duration is most practical for your organization, 45 minutes perhaps. But there's the way you can make sure that devices, on an individual level are not staying on too long. I'll turn that off for now. I don't generally want that on. The other way to do it, as I did sort of allude to before, is you could set up a a control event on a schedule where basically all your devices, or say I had a school and I'm going to pick a location. I want all my devices in the United States, or all my devices in Leland, North Carolina, or all my devices in my Optoma satellite office. And I would then set up the control event, when it's going to happen. Does it happen, just once? This would repeat likely every day of the week. I can just check every day and these will all go checked. I can set, maybe you want this to behave differently during the summer when school is out of session than you want it to behave when school is in session. Yeah, here's where you would do it on a system-wide basis, essentially.
All right, perfect. And let me stop for just a second and ask, does anybody have any questions immediately? Please feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll make sure we address those while we're here in the call. We've got a couple quick questions to go and then we'll be wrapping this up. All right, so I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. If you have any questions, drop them in there. But let's move on to our next question for Roland. Let's say I'm trying to manage, start with one display and then we'll talk about group of displays. But let's
Mhm.
say I want to manage the applications that are on the boards. How could I go about doing that?
Okay, that's a good question. So these boards are Creative Touch, both the 3 Series Gen 3 and the 5 Series Gen 3. These are EDLA certified by Google, which means they run the full Google Play Store, and the apps get installed directly from Google Play. What that means is, practically speaking, you're going to manage that, especially in a school, more than likely through the Google admin console. So the installation of applications, as well as other associated Google account settings and things of that nature, those would be managed through the Google admin console. If you're in a smaller system where you're not utilizing the full Google Workspace, like you don't have an enterprise account, you can also send apps or install apps on the boards directly via the Google Play Store website. So either through the answer to your question, how would you manage, the applications? You would more than likely do it through the Google Admin Console or through the Google Play Store interface. That being said, we do have the option to directly control the apps that are on the boards through the OMS interface. You can basically uninstall and install particular apps. And I find this most useful probably to uninstall applications. Like if I want to get rid of this application, somebody's installed something you don't necessarily want, you can go ahead and uninstall it. And I should mention that administrators do have the option to essentially disable the entire Google Play Store. The admin can set up the apps that they do want on the panel, get that set up, through the admin console or right from the board. And once it's done, or once they have the board set up the way they want it, disable the App Store access, and then no more apps can be installed. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Perfect. Yes, thank
Hmm.
you. So
Hmm.
essentially what we're saying is these EDLA certified displays can be managed in the Google Admin Console the same way that you would manage a Chromebook. Is that fair?
Absolutely, that's right. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
just as easy
And
as managing a Chromebook.
right. So we have everything that we manage on the Optoma OMS side, and then those Google specific features, a little more control for that within the Google Admin Console. And that's something that we try to remember for our IT teams that we work with is that they typically like a little more control over this because we know that as much as we've all wanted true app functionality and being able to install the whole Google Suite on the displays, as well as the Microsoft applications and any of those other applications your teachers want to use. We also want to make sure that they're not installing TikTok or any of the other not educational appropriate apps that can be found in the Play Store. So awesome. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Let's talk now. And actually, I'm going to take a question from our chat. Is there a companion app on the panel that has to be launched in order to pair the device with OMS?
Uh, well, there is a companion app on the panel. Uh, for the most part, it runs, silently and sort of invisibly in the background. Um, if you recall, I mentioned that there are two ways to add devices. You can either add devices one at a time, or you can use the bulk import feature utilizing an Excel sheet. Um, if you go the route of adding one panel at a time, like you have a small system, you only have 5 panels, you'd rather just go to each panel and add them to the system. In that case, you would open the OMS application on the board for the pairing process. But that's really the only time that you would ever want or need to get um, to the application that runs on the board.
Okay, perfect. And that
Yeah.
essentially is just going to give us access to that pairing pin code, right?
Yes, the other thing you can do, if for some reason you want to remove the panel from the system, there is an option if you open the application to sort of reset it. The reset process will remove it from any account that it's paired to. So,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. Hopefully that answered our question.
Hmm.
Let's move to our last official question from the presentation or for the presentation. It is broadcasting features. And I know you touched on it a little bit in the tour, but can you show us, maybe demonstrate a few of the broadcasting capabilities that we have?
Absolutely. And the broadcast and signage capabilities of OMS as a whole is really one area that we've worked very hard to improve and really make as robust, as possible. Yeah, and I'd be happy to demonstrate some of those features. So within the signage tab, signage is where you will essentially initiate all those broadcast messages. There are three sub-tabs. There's media, template, and broadcast. Media is where you can upload all your content to our servers, right, to the OMS servers. And what this lets you do, um, you know, let me back up a step and say that because OMS is web-based, right, it's a website. Say your school superintendent is off-site for the day or working from home. Um, you can access the system remotely, even from a tablet, right? So you're not locked into being at a computer. And the reason I mention that is by being able to upload your content ahead of time, it makes it that much easier when you want to send these messages or push this content to the boards. Because it's already uploaded, you don't have to upload content to send a message. You basically select what you want to send and tell it the duration it's going to play for. So the point here is that you can upload all your content. And if I go to add, you'll see and forgive me, my webinar window is in the way, but I can either add media, and this is going to let me upload image files, or I can upload linked content essentially. So I've got the ability to push YouTube videos to the panels, and keep in mind that those can be hidden or private YouTube videos. So if you want to utilize YouTube as part of your signage rollout in your school, you can essentially publish videos that the public can't find by searching. No one will ever see it, other than you using it for your purposes. But you can also upload RSS feeds, which play into our playlist, right? So we'll get there in a second, but just for now, keep in mind you can upload RSS feeds. And Canva templates are another, this is a relatively new feature to OMS, launched in the last 6 months. And it's really powerful for several different reasons. Canva is very popular, particularly with educators. So a lot of people are already using it, which makes rollout very easy. Yeah, so you can add all your content, and I have many examples. Carlene, these are lovely. You've created most of these for me, as a matter of fact. Um, Let me go into, well, let's just send a broadcast message. Let's get to some of the fun stuff. So we have a few different options up here, and we can touch on those perhaps, in as much detail as you like, Carlene. But you do have some specific emergency notification functionality, as well as cap message, which is how we integrate with third-party alert management systems for schools, essentially. But if I want to send a message, I'm going to send it to a device. I'm going to pick my device. I could also pick a group of devices. Like I think I have a group called All, which just has one device in it. But now my Zoom or my Teams window's in the way again. But in fact, we'll change that back to device. I don't recall exactly how I've got that set up, but my two main options, I can send a text message. So say you need to send a message quickly, like Jane Doe, please report to the nurse's office. You could just send this quick text message. You have some options as to how large the banner is going to be. Is it going to be in the middle of the screen, the bottom, the top, whether it's going to scroll or not. But the media messages are much more fun, for lack of a better word, and we'll share an example here. So let me send this game day announcement. I'm going to send this content to my panel. It is going to display full screen, and I can set a duration here. So this is going to display for 30 seconds. And the forced broadcast mode basically means, can the user in front of the panel override the message? So if it were something more critical, you can check this, and that essentially ensures that it will be shown on the panel. But I'm going to go ahead and click send. And I did this quickly. Hopefully I checked everything right, but there we go. In just a second, my panel gets taken over with that content, and there's my signage being displayed. Keep in mind that I just did that real time. I said I want to send this image to this board right now. You can also schedule this. You would do it by going into the schedule function, but once you go in there and pick your date and time, the interface is essentially the same as this part of it. Yeah, and the templates. This is essentially playlists. Right, so we've decided to call it templates. If I go to add a template, and a lot of these are linked to RSS feeds and web content, so there's not a lot to see here, but if I go to add, you will see that I get the option. I can build my own custom signage layouts, right, with split images, or this kind of tiled option where I have a main content window. And if you select one and go to next, it actually gives you the recommended image sizes. So you could then go into Canva and make an image of the required size and basically build out your signage. And you can even add an audio track to it. And then, the playlist is most often used on a scheduled basis. Yeah. So I don't know if you'd like to see another particular example, Carlene. I'm not sure into how much detail you would
No,
like to
I
go
think
here.
that is actually perfect. We do have one question in the chat that I want to bring to your attention in just a
Sure,
second. But first off, this is the perfect segue. I'm going to steal the screen for just a moment to
please.
show you that this leads directly into our next section. Roland is going to be joining us again next month, August 28th, where we're going to dive specifically into our digital signage piece. We're going to talk specifically about our partnerships with Canva and Raptor and a couple other options as far as being able to send kind of those basic informative digital signage uses, as well as that emergency alerting capability. So please plan on joining us. You'll see more information about that hopefully in the very near future. And I also want to mention too, Roland is our OMS guru. He has many hats, so I'm not going to give him one specific hat, but he does lots of things. If you have any questions, whether you're watching this recording, you're in the meeting now, feel free to reach out to either of us directly, or you can reach out to opam.education@optoma.com, and we will do our best to answer your questions, or I will pass you off to my guy, Roland, to make sure that we are able to assist you with any troubleshooting that you have. So I'm going to stop sharing again really quick so that we can allow Roland to share and answer these last two questions we have from the chat. So does the panel have an update button or an app that a user can launch to update the firmware? And if so,
Yes.
can that be disabled?
Yes. So to answer your question, the firmware updates can be initiated right from the settings menu of the panel, right? So if my panel behind me, if I bring up my quick access menu and go, I believe it's under System Update, I can turn the auto updates on and off, and I can also choose to push an update immediately, essentially. How you would stop users, disable that. Let me go back in and share my screen again. If you want to stop users from being able to access those settings, what you would basically do is put a password in front of the entire settings menu. So if I go, I believe it's under System Management, OSD lock. I can go in here and lock the settings menu so that users, when they try to access that, will be met with a password basically that gets set on the board. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. Yes, you don't have to use OMS for updates. You can set automatic updates to happen on the board directly from the board. You can also say, I want to check for an update now, just like you can on a phone or tablet, as you would expect. And if you want to prevent users from accessing those options, there is an OSD lock, which basically locks users out of being able to access those settings.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hmm.
I think that answers that question. The second part of this was, let's say the teacher goes to update the panel and they do push it through on their side, depending, there are various reasons why they might do that. Let's say it's taking a little bit longer than expected and they need to start teaching. Is there any way that they can close that or stop the process temporarily?
Uh, I would not recommend ever interrupting a firmware update. Once an update has been initiated, I would, and I think this would also be the official Optoma technical support answer. Once an update starts, let it finish. It can only cause trouble by trying to interrupt an update. I guess that leads into, the answer to that is good management, right? In terms of turning off the updates, locking the settings menu. Also, when updates become available and you want to roll out that update, go ahead and schedule the update so it happens during off hours and you're not running into that situation where, a teacher is running an update during school hours.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I love it. Just like we update
anytime.
our phones when they're plugged in overnight, right? We just set that to update maybe 2 a.m. And when they come in the morning, everything should be up and running and good to go.
I agree with all of that.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for adding questions in the comments and for attending our session today. Please join us next month as we dive into that signage and broadcasting capability a little bit further. And please feel free to reach out if you have any further questions. Thanks
Thanks so
again.
much.
Thanks, Roland.